Dr. Grant Show. I am so excited to introduce my next guest. If you've ever struggled with food addiction, emotional eating, food cravings, and it's triggered by stress, it's triggered by anxiety, I have a very special treat for you. Darren Austin Hall, his website is darrenaustinhall.com. He works and is a gifted, brilliant musician and channeler with sound healing. And for those of you that don't know, I've recently picked up a set of crystal singing bowls and I'm goo goo gaga in love with the sound and the harmonics that they emit. But it's more than a pleasant sound. And I can't do it justice. So that's why I brought Darren on. Darren, can you talk to us more about your experience with crystal singing bowls, sound healing, and the like?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Dr. Grant. I'm super excited. I'm always excited just to share about this paradigm because it is the medicine of now, as it's been prophesied by many different people. So, yeah, it's exciting to see how sound healing is just taking off. You know, sound baths, crystal singing bowls, they're being used now all over the world with such amazing joy and excitement, and it's an amazing thing. I've been working in the field of sound healing for over a decade professionally, although if I chart my life path, I've been really just involved in kind of the mystical expression of music since I was a child. And I've always been fascinated and just in love with music itself. But it wasn't until about 15 years ago when I was studying Chinese medicine where I discovered just the power of sound healing. And I became completely enthralled by this paradigm. And why sound healing is so important now is because of the quantum physics revolution and all these scientific understandings that are really rendering that our universe is literally made of vibrating energy. So if everything is energetic and is vibration and is thus frequency, it is sound at a certain level. And this explains why a lot of the ancient mystics had these beautiful poetic musings about the universe being a huge symphony, the music of the spheres, to borrow from Pythagoras, the ancient Greek sound healer. And we start to understand, okay, they understood this, and now our Western physical sciences, through piercing the atom into the quantum realm, are seeing this as well. So that's really exciting. And that explains why sound is healing. It's working on that root level of our being, that vibrating energy that is consciousness itself. And that's why in sound healing offerings such as sound baths, sound journeys, which are so popular, there are all manner of healing experiences that people go through, whether it's just simply their parasympathetic nervous system getting initiated, getting into relaxation response, which we know initiates a lot of self-healing, to people being visited by the dearly departed, to people having mystical experiences of going out of body, to long-standing pain just vanishing from the body. There's all manner of incredible things that are starting to happen. And the crystal singing bowls are really powerful tools. Crystals have been used since ancient times by indigenous peoples. They're really seen as a very earth-based, Mother Earth medicine because crystals are like fossilized water. They're harvested from deep in the earth and they give off electromagnetic fields. So they're in itself alive. And the fact that they've fashioned these crystal singing bowls from quartz is just amazing. So without playing them, they're exuding these very beneficial harmonic fields. But then, of course, the beauty is they make these sounds, and the sounds are very pure, and they help to initiate a relaxation of the mind and the body, which is just kind of the gateway to all the other exciting healings that I've mentioned.
Amazing. And I can really attest to that. And what's beautiful about the crystal singing bowls is you don't have to physically be there in comparison to like a weighted tuning fork, for example, where you need to physically be there in order to receive the full impact of the harmonics and the vibration. So I do you find working with energy that one resonator, emitter of energy is better than another for anxiety or just overall needing to de-stress versus another, or is it contingent upon the person?
Well, I will say this, that I think, sound healing and sound healing music is a really great pattern disruptor, you know? So if someone's in like an anxious state of mind, they're probably in a very high beta brainwave state, and their thoughts are probably victimizing them. They have no control over the mind. And what's beautiful about particularly the sounds of crystal bowls and a lot of kind of like drone music, which is just this like deep drone sound which people will sing over and provide other instrumentation, is that it puts you in that beginning stage of meditation, which we find in the alpha brainwave state, which is slower than the beta. So
Right.
when people are feeling struck by anxiety or depression, any kind of mental health disorder, they can literally go to sound healing and let the sound kind of interrupt that pattern, and then give them the opportunity to choose a different mindset so they can be victors over their mind and not be victimized. So it's always bringing us back to this still point of balance, which is inherently what we are on a deeper level, but it's often obscured by that overthinking and these kind of more frenetic brainwave states, such as typical with anxieties.
And to educate people that are unfamiliar with the brain waves, the order of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, goes, I usually use the analogy of bat, beta, alpha, and theta.
Yeah, and then you have delta, which is like deep sleep, like when you're
Right,
not even dreaming. But what's
right,
really fascinating about brainwave states is they've now found another brainwave state called gamma, which is like
right.
super high. And it's funny, I think from
Mhm.
my understanding, they only found gamma brainwave states after studying Tibetan Buddhist monks, because they would study them with like EKG machines to see their brainwave states when they entered into meditation. And what was fascinating was they would slowly step down from beta down to alpha, down to theta, down to delta. But then it was like they hit this trampoline, and then they all of a sudden like hit it, and then boom, they're up into gamma in this like really coherent. It's like where epiphanies happen. It's where athletes are really in when they're performing. It's just this incredibly lucid, high-powered mental functionality that we really didn't know much about. But now we know that actually the paradox, because a lot of spirituality, it's all about paradox. When you enter into deep, deep, deep stillness, you actually kind of enter into this then hyperspace of realizations and bliss and enlightenment.
Mm. So this swings back around to something that I always harp on more now because of the hard lesson I learned, which is sleep. And when you descend
Mm,
into sleep, your brain waves descend from that beta state, from that alpha state, down into your theta state. And that's where the renewative, restorative aspects of sleep begin to take hold with DNA repair, cell repair, clearing out the brain memory, things of that nature, unneeded memories. So it's so key to be able to relax and descend into that sleep so that your whole body system can work to repair itself. Because without adequate sleep, scientific studies and research has shown for people that are vulnerable to overeating and binging, it's almost like you're drunk because your impulse control drastically reduces, even when you don't have just, if you're just shy of an hour of
right.
sleep.
Yeah.
Your ability, it's almost like you're drunk, you're sitting up there like, okay, well, should I not eat the whole plate of nachos covered in sour cream? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I should totally do that.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I love studying the ancients, you know, because they had so much and still have so much to give us. And there's this interesting story about Pythagoras, who was considered in Western civilization one of the great kind of theorists on the spiritual power of music and the healing power of sound. And he actually had a whole school, and he would get his students to play this lyre harp um, every night before they would go to bed and first thing upon awakening. And he specifically said they would do this because when you play music before you go to sleep, it tunes your psyche, it tunes your mind and your soul so that you'll have better sleep, better dreams. And then upon awakening, you play it to sort of just rouse yourself vibrationally for the day. And I get my own students to do this. If they don't play musical instruments, I just tell them to like play music in headphones, like something very relaxing, before they go to sleep. And then upon awakening, maybe they play something a little more active, like some kind of like rock ballad anthem that really gets them going. And it's absolutely profound. You know, it's a really, really powerful tool to use music in that kind of intentional way. We often just put music on for entertainment or in the background, but the ancients are telling us, no, music is like something that you should grab from the medicine cabinet. You should really use it for that kind of reason. So for sleep, it's really, really powerful. And there's lots of amazing sleep sound healing music now, which is really, really cool to experiment with.
Yes, I agree with you. Now, talk to me, and I know you know about this. I didn't even have to ask. Binaural beats.
Binaural beats,
Yeah,
yes,
talk to
yes.
me more about that because I've been delving into the research on that, and it's absolutely stunning and amazing. Its vast potential.
It is. So the idea of binaural beats is it's when basically two frequencies are very close together. I can't remember the exact accuracy, but it's something between like zero point 0.5 and 4 hertz. We measure sound with cycles per second in hertz. So when you have two sounds that are like 1 or 2 hertz different, there's a little space in between them. And it's this kind of mystical phenomena that happens where the two sounds will start to kind of like reverberate with this little space, like they're bouncing back and forth from each other and creating this kind of communication. And of course, when we remember the brainwave states, if you're listening to this little sound that's waving back and forth, so it's this phenomena where you're hearing the two sounds, and then there's this like waving happening, so this other vibrational phenomena. That other vibrational phenomena is probably 0, 1, or 2, or 4 hertz. And that's like delta brainwave states, remember. So it's like immediately in training, this is the idea. Entrainment means it's like one frequency is influencing another. So it's in training your own brainwave states to then drop down super deeply. So my experience, because I actually have crystal bowls that are binaural, so they actually create this phenomena. And I can also actually sing into my crystal bowls a little off pitch with them and create that phenomena with my voice. And it immediately gives people like a mystical experience. And it gives me a mystical experience too, which is like the greatest part and why I love doing sound journeys, is because I'm also getting so much out of it. But it immediately puts people into this like super mystical altered state or enhanced state, really. And the last thing I want to add about that is the Tibetan chimes, the tingsha that people will traditionally use at the beginning and end of meditation, they are binaural beats. So the Tibetans are, yeah, that's why you hear this like ding, and there's this kind of wavering thing. So the Tibetans are said to be one of the greatest teachers on sound healing. They have like so much knowledge on it, and a lot of it they actually don't share because they consider that there's one realm of sound healing that can be very dangerous. You know, you've seen like bridges and people shattering glass with sound. Well, the Tibetans apparently know a thing or two about that. But the tingsha which they developed, the reason they do that is because if you hit them before and after meditation, it really helps to like, first of all, it's a very like on level of sound quality, it's just very like clearing sound. It brings you into alertness, but it's also bringing you into that kind of like altered meditative state. So next time you hit those tinctures, know that you're working with a very ancient binaural technology.
Now that I didn't know. I'm like I said, I'm still a newbie in this area of applied science. I've been reading about it for 30 years, but and studying, but the applied portion I finally made the so here's a question for you because you have students, you have experience in this. If someone is struggling with stress, and that stress, no matter what the source of the stress is from, I'll keep it very general for the sake of brevity. But if they're stressed out and that's causing them to overeat, what would you recommend they lean more into?
Yeah, I would recommend, or I would probably, if I was working with them personally, I would give them a playlist of sounds that they can first listen to as a different option to go to something that, as I mentioned, would maybe disrupt that pattern. So that's one way. There's just so much amazing music. And I've curated a lot of playlists for my students, like ancient music as well, that's very spiritual and very activating in a lot of ways. And as I mentioned, there's lots of amazing sound healing music. I've produced albums myself, but there's a lot of very specific frequency music now, like solfeggio frequencies, for example, that are very intentionally about creating meditative states. So when someone's in anxiety, that kind of music will help to put them into a state of calmness. The other thing that I mentioned that is really exciting is the idea of using your own voice as a sound healing tool. This is one of the great boons of sound healing, actually, is that the most powerful sound healing tool, aside from even the crystal singing bowls, is the human voice, because it's literally lodged in your body. you have this frequency generator that has incredible pitch, incredible range, and your consciousness is embedded. It's embedded in your consciousness, so you can literally like think an intention, make a sound, and you can imagine that that sound's going to program all of your body, which is suffused with water, which is like the lover of sound. Water just completely changes and alters to vibration. And vocal toning also puts your brainwaves into alpha state. And I have actually worked with a number of people who have mental health challenges like depression, and I've gotten a few people actually off of antidepressants. And vocal toning is one of the exercises that they say was truly most excellent in helping them making that transition. And I do actually have on my Mystical Meditations album, which is on Spotify, a chakra toning meditation. There's actually evidence that the 7 vowel sounds were considered sacred by the Egyptians, who were also very highly connected to formerly the Atlanteans. And they would use these tones to basically, as a kind of energetic calisthenics, to keep their chakras balanced. So anytime we want to work with our consciousness, our mind, when we're dealing with anxieties, depression, the chakras are a really great way to just deepen our connection to our energetic self. And they are the mind too. So when our chakras are stronger, our mind is going to be stronger also.
And for those people that are unfamiliar with chakras, chakras essentially, to give the very short, condensed version definition, we talk about that all day as well. But the
Right.
chakras, and the reason why they're so important, is that if they are out of balance, and there are 7 chakras that range from the base of your spine to the top, and also one floating above your head. And each chakra is assigned a certain role and interaction with your life. So, for example, if I talk about the heart chakra, it means essentially having difficulties. And correct me if I'm wrong, and if I'm going off track anytime, Darren. But
Yeah.
if, for example, you're having challenges with opening up to being loved or love being, if, for example, you're blocked creatively and you have hard time sharing your voice, and that's your throat chakra. If you've experienced trauma, for example, and you're having a hard time feeling safe in your home, once again, Darren, correct me if I'm ever wrong on this, then your root chakra may be to blame. It could be in the signs of the chakras out of balance. There's different areas that it's basically flat disc of light. We cut you open, you will not find it, okay? But they can either be spinning the opposite direction or they could be spinning slowly. And this is the sign that they're out of balance when you're seeing things being out of balance in your life. Do I have it kind of nailed?
Yeah, that was great. Super
Okay.
good. Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
There are
Yeah,
some
it's
people
like,
that are aware, and there are some people that are not. So that's why I like to add it in.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I take that for granted, but I also find it really amazing that more and more people know about the chakras. I mean, I remember over a decade ago when I first began, in foraying into teaching and workshops and giving sound journeys, like no one, the rarest person would know about chakras. And now it's like almost everyone knows. And that's exciting. That shows that we're actually starting to work on such a deep level of being, and that's great.
I love that before, when I would talk about chakras or talk about things being affected at a subatomic level, since the body is comprised of 60% water and vibration and frequency, that I remember 20 years ago, maybe one hand, if I talked about it, would raise shyly, hesitantly.
Right.
And now we talk about it, and there are more hands raising, say, "Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that." But what I am fascinated with, and why I love bringing you on, is as I'm peeling back the layers here and looking at how this intersects with psychology, how it intersects with people building and being the architect of their lives and building a life and a future that they love. Sound healing and energy work is so integral. It's more than just like for yoga, for example, it's more than just the yoga poses. Getting a more in depth knowledge of how it intersects with your life to get you to where you want to be is so crucial.
Absolutely. And it's truly amazing. Like our times are just so intersecting, converging, unifying, which is all the fulfillment of so many prophecies. And it's just amazing that all of these things are starting to bridle together. I'm just so excited for what's happening and for the future of medicine and healing.
Tell us about the latest project that you're excited about that you're working on, even through COVID and the pandemic.
Well, it's interesting. I live in Costa Rica now, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. I had decided to move to Costa Rica back in 2019, but I wasn't going to make the more permanent move until this year, 2021. And then I was on tour and teaching some trainings here last year when the pandemic hit, and then I decided to just stay, and I haven't gone back to Toronto since. And I found myself actually living with one of my favorite music producers in the world, Stefan Key, who's this amazing shamanic sound healing guy as well. And I'd been dreaming of making this double album called Honoral Creation, devoted to restoring a sense of Mother Earth as the living goddess and just activating all these different characteristics of our human evolution. And I actually received the vision for this album while doing a plant medicine ceremony with a team of doctors and shamans together. It was really unique in Mexico about 5 years ago. And I just never had the time to make the album. So we made this album all of last year during COVID. We hunkered down in this beautiful town called Santa Teresa on the ocean, and we released the album on December 21st to really attune to the Aquarian age astrological convergence that was happening on that day. And with that being released, it's kind of like the biggest sacred artist statement I've ever made. And it's on Spotify, and we've been also making beautiful music videos, which you can find on my YouTube channel. But the big thing is I'll be soon launching in the coming months an online companion journey of 22 wisdom teachings to mirror the 22 songs. It'll be called Honoral Creation, the New Earth Mythology. And it'll also coincide with the launching of the Gaia Awakening Online School, where I'm going to be housing a lot more of my online content. So I'm really jazzed about that. We've just finished all the filming. We're doing some editing. I just took on a marketing team to really help me strategize how to get this into the world in the right way. And that's definitely something I'm just like super excited to offer to the world.
Speaking of that, where can people find you? You mentioned Spotify.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of albums on Spotify. You can also, if you're not into streaming and you want to purchase the album, you can find it on Apple Music. It's also on Bandcamp, which is a kind of iTunes more for artists. My website, of course, DarrenAustinHall.com. I also do a lot of Instagramming these days. It seems to be a platform that's very dynamic, so you can find me at Darren Druid. And lastly, you can find me on YouTube. I have a channel there, Darren Austin Hall, and I share usually weekly Wisdom Warrior transmissions where I do spiritual talks on all manner of subjects. So those are all the spaces where I'm at.
That sounds amazing. So guys, if you want to dive deeper into what he wants to share with you and his area of expertise and gift, because he was touched with this gift as young as a child, when he was a child. So he's got lots of experience. I highly recommend that you check out his very giving, open spirit. For more episodes of the Dr. Grant Show, you can find us on edibleaddiction.com. And the Dr. Grant Show has been created for women and for brave men that struggle with food addiction and symptoms of food addiction, such as overeating, binge eating, emotional eating, stress eating. And we want to give you tips and tools to put your feet on the right path so that you can actually build the life that you love. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us in the Dr. Grant Show. Much love to you. Bye.